Today is 9th of March 2013, and it is a great honor to have a dear friend with us to share her remembrances of Mother and Sri Aurobindo and the Ashram in the early days, Aster Patel. Welcome, Aster. The first question we usually ask everyone is, how did you first come to the ashram, hear about Sri Aurobindo, and how did your parents bring you, etc. So I know that could be a long discussion, and I welcome you to tell us all about it.
I'll try to say it in as few words as I can. My father was at the University of Delhi. This was in the 30s. He was teaching philosophy, psychology, but his real quest was spiritual realization. And he was looking for a master. He traveled all over the country. And he and Tara Johor's father, who were very close friends, like brothers, they made their first trip to Pondicherry.
Your father's name?
My father's name is Indra Sen.
So they came together to the ashram.
The first visit they came together, I think it was around 1939. And for my father, well, this was what he was looking for. It's very clear. And then he started to read Sri Aurobindo's works, and he found in it a whole new system of psychology that he was looking for. And that's how integral psychology was accepted by Sri Aurobindo as a term for his work. And it began. That was in the 39-40. On another visit, my mother came with him, and the moment she met the mother, as she told me much later, she felt here was an old contact and she had to come and live with her, as simple as that. Then started regular visits with the children, me and my brother. So when the first visit started, I was about 7 years old. And sometimes we came, the children, with our mother and stayed for 6 months, sometimes for shorter stays, sometimes she came alone. And it was very interesting. This was 1943, as I was told later. During the February darshan, my parents had come by themselves, leaving the children in Delhi. But by that time, they were clear that they were going to come and live here in a very short while. And mother said to my mother, I want you here before April darshan with the children.
Oh.
And Indra Sen can be in Delhi for a little while longer. He comes and goes for the darshans. So that's how it started. And my mother told the large family that was there that, look, I'm going with the children, that's it. And she boarded the longest train that existed at that time in the country. There was no longer train journey than from Delhi to here, with 2 little children and possibly 2 little boxes. And we arrived in Pondicherry on 13th of April 1943. And mother had sent Vishnuji, who used to assist and look after Puranaji, to receive us at the station. And she had a house ready for us, and that's how our life began. And there were no children in the ashram at that time. And as I remember, 1 or 2 who had just come around that time. And that's how it came.
So that Tara and Lata and the family must have come just about a year after you came.
Shortly after,
Yes.
a year or 2,
Uh-huh.
about that time, yes. And in fact, within a year, there were a number of other children who came, and within a year we were about a dozen. like the family of Manoj and Arathi, their family was here. Then shortly after Chitradi and Amita, their family was here. Jhumur and Cham and Sunil, they were here a little later. And Dayakar was here around that time, and there were some others, but that's how it happened.
And this was the height of the war, of course, World War II.
Yes,
At
there's
this
some
time.
amazing moments of what it was like to be in the ashram at that time when Mother was so deeply engrossed in the war situation. Some amazing things that used to happen. But we were children, we were growing up. Our home was the ashram courtyard. We had a house very close to the ashram. There was no playground, no activities of physical education, obviously. There was no school. So our home was living in the courtyard of the ashram, playing around and going to Mother 3-4 times a day. And Shobindo's darshan 4 times a year. And in the main precincts of the ashram, each of the big rooms was inhabited by a great being. You had Puraniji, Nalina, Pavitata, Amritaji. And I remember what, at least for me, was the happiest time as to go from one room to the other, feeling the presence of each one. And I was so happy, so much at home. And you know, when the children first started to come, I think the senior disciples wondered what was happening to the ashram that only had about 300 very senior disciples. But when they saw the kind of time and attention that the mother was giving to the children, because once she received the children, you know, they became a very clear focus for her, the time and energy then that she gave to us. Then, of course, all these, I call them great beings because they really were. They were great presences in themselves. And they were like our own parents and guardians. They showered us with love and care and affection, and we were too young to converse with them. But when our parents talked to them, we sat, played around in their rooms and listened. And I don't know what we imbibed, but you had the feeling that they were with us. They were kind of taking care of us.
Guardian presences.
Guardian presences. You know, shortly before Nirodha left the body, I mentioned this to him. And I said, you know, now that I look back, I can say I had the feeling that in silence, because we were much too young for words, you were kind of sharing your being with us as much as we as children could possibly receive. He listened to it very quietly and he said, that was our work for the mother. So we grew up very happy. We had a meditation in this little meditation room in the ashram. We went up to the mother 3-4 times a day. And immediately Mother said that now she must look after our studies. So my brother and I were put in the care of Shishidhar, Shishir Kumar Mitra, who had come from Shantiniketan and who lived in the house where you now have the treasure clinic. So our mornings were spent with him in studying, being with him, and we sat under a champa tree in the courtyard, and that's how it was. And since my mother had also been a teacher earlier, some of the other children who came back, Sumitra Deshu Prabhat, you know, that family was there too, I forgot to mention. They would come to our house to study with my mother, and we would go to Shishida. So that's how the year 43 went on, till Mother announced that she was going to start a school on 2nd of December 43, and our joy knew no bounds that we would have a school. We had no idea what that meant, because all we had was one classroom. no books, and 3 teachers. And we were about perhaps 10 or 12 young children. Mother said, that's fine. And then she guided the teachers, she taught us, and well, that was another lap. But
when did the Center of Education, when did she begin the Center of Education?
oh, that was much later. The
Much
school
later.
went on. That was in
40
50, January 51.
51. You had free access to Mother, all your children. You could run to her at any moment. Can you tell us about some of your wonderful childhood experiences with Mother?
It's not easy to respond to it because there are so many. But maybe I just think of 2, but quite frankly, I'm nowhere doing justice to the rhythm of the life and what went on at the time. Moment I came, she asked me to work in the flower room. I must have been about 10, 11 years old. The flower room was where Pujalaji used to live later. And we had 3 senior people who looked after it. And she asked me to work with them and to collect the flowers. So that's one of my very precious memories, that you had a lot of service flowers, because that tree means so much to you now, which used to be on the ground. So I remember myself on all 4s picking up the service flowers and picking up also the buds, arranging them in big thals of brass or trays and counting them. You know, Mother had what she called some very special flowers, and they had to be numbered. They could not just be kept. So I remember it was 1,000, this. You couldn't miss 1 digit. So you arranged them, the flowers, and the buds were counted. There was a little slip put on one side, so many flowers, so many buds, and the other flowers should be in those compassion. But this service tree especially, because the courtyard was full of it. And then one of the senior people would take them up to shove in those rooms. So somehow that work with the flowers, that's one of the childhood memories which for me has been very, very deep. And a little later, if I may so maybe about 12, 13 years of age, when I would go up to Mother for one of the blessings during the day, there were several occasions, she would say something which at that age I could not understand at all. I'm not even sure that I truly fathom it even now. And these words are like ingrained in my being. She said, be conscious. And the second phrase, find the psychic being, nothing else. And every 2 or 3 months, when I went to her, she said the same thing to me. And obviously, what did one understand? But walking down the steps and through the courtyard, one was so full of joy and lightness. What she gave through the words, I can't say. But she did it over a period of time. It may be, I can't say a year or so, but every 2-3 months. And then I must say, for me, it was standing before Sri Aurobindo. Right at the same age, nothing counted for me more than to stand in front of him. From about 12 onwards. And in those days, for the darshan time, you had Nirodha standing to the right of the mother. And obviously we went with the parents, in a single file, stood in front. At one point I felt I wanted to stand alone before Sri Aurobindo, straight. So I told my father that I will not go out of the line, I will not disturb anyone, but I'd like to go alone. But obviously everyone here respected it. So I used to go on my own. Once by, you know how the grace works, Dilip Kumar Roy was here at that time, whom you all knew very well. I happened to be behind him in the line. And you know, he used to come in his flowing orange robes, and I mean, as he was in the queue along with everyone else, he was in complete ecstasy. You know, he had no awareness of what was around. I happened to be behind him. And when he stood before Sri Aurobindo, I noticed something unbelievably wonderful. You know, when one stood before Sri Aurobindo, he had that vast impersonal look. You know, somewhere deep, deep, deep behind. You could gaze into his eyes and then get lost somewhere. But when Dilipta stood in front of him, his eyes focused into a look of personal recognition. But the impersonal look was not lost. So you saw in Sri Aurobindo the vast impersonal look in the eyes, plus like a camera zeroes in, a personal look of recognition. And the vibration that went from one to the other was something which thrilled me. I'd never felt it before. You know, in those moments when Dilipta was in front of him.
Did he smile at all? What was his countenance like?
There was, you know, normally there was no smile of a physical nature on Sri Aurobindo that I had ever seen at darshan time. But when Dilipta was there, there was a look of recognition and a little smile, even physically. And mainly it was the vibration and that impersonal look and the personal focus. After that, I knew what my being was looking for. I would hang around the ashram gate. Nobody would notice, children are playing around, everyone knows everyone. The moment the Dilipta would enter the ashram gate and join the queue, I'd slip in behind him. And when we entered the darshan room, you know, a young child, and he was big, and his, you know, robes were flowing all everywhere. You could look a bit to the right and a bit to the left, and you could see Sri Aurobindo so many more times, and so much longer. And when he was there, to sense that. So for years, that is how I went for the darshan. And I must say that is something which is the most, what shall I say, powerful sense of being at that time. And something more which might interest you. I must have been about 15. And there was Amita, Chitrati's sister, you know her. We were the same age. She called both of us upstairs. And she said, you know, Sri Aurobindo has written something. We will dramatize it. This was in 1949. And she gave us a printed sheet of the dialogue between love and death in Savitri, which I presume Rolinda must have typed. She did not even say this is Savitri. She very sweetly, quietly said, Sri Aurobindo has written something. We'll dramatize it. The book was not published. So she called us into the room, you know, the room of the darshan. She gave me the role of death, and she gave Amita the role of love. Now, you know, we had no theatre, we had no dramatic performance. You know, that was the start of it. You know, at the age of 15, you expect some kind of an airy-fairy role. Death, you don't know what to do with it. So, because we spoke to Mother about everything, I said, Mother, but why have you given me the role of death? She straightened up, very straight, looked straight at me and said, death is nothing to be afraid of. This is something to be conquered. Now let's get back to work. Then she stood with her back to the darshan seat, and Amita and I stood at the other end of the room where you have the chair where
Yes.
she gave interviews later. And she taught us how to recite, how to throw our voice. She spoke how to throw our voice from the pit of the stomach, and what the intonation and the inflection should be for the role of love and for the role of death. So she trained us there for about, I don't know, I can't say exactly how long, maybe about a month or so. After that, she said, fine, now we'll do the makeup and the dress. So she got out all her kit of makeup because, so much was offered to her which was with her. And I still remember that she had taken out makeup by Guerlain, the French company. She did the hair, she did the eyes and eyeshadow, everything. And Amita was dressed as love. She was dressed in white robes. And the mother took out for me a gown in black Chantilly lace from France, which belonged to her maternal grandmother. It's still there, arranged in her rooms upstairs. And at that time, it kind of fitted me perfectly. So when she done the dress and the makeup and all, because we had no art room, we had nothing at that time, then finally she said, Sri Aurobindo will hear us. I was thrilled. I was thrilled because I said, then we'll see Sri Aurobindo for a 5th time this year. But he has his own ways. In the middle room, where we wait before going to his room, a chair was put. And he sat there and he heard us, but he didn't come out. So we were in that room, and then that was, in a sense, the first performance, not only of Savitri, but anything dramatic in the ashram. And then the next year we had something in the playground, and then it took different shape that we now know of. But, well...
How often did you go to Mother to practice before you did it for Sri Aurobindo?
That I don't remember how often.
Must have been
was.
a number
but
of
it was
times.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
It was some length of time. I think about a month or so.
Mm-hmm.
But how often during that month? But it was quite a bit. I mean, it was not casual. It was serious.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Mother standing at the far end of the room and throwing out her voice. I mean, she had the full dramatic, how should I say, finesse of how to train somebody. How the voice comes from deep within, and how you project it outside, and how it changes depending on the role that you are given. And I must say, all these long years I have wondered very often, why did she do this, and why did she choose such youngsters, 15-year-olds? I don't know, but I can only say that they wanted to perhaps hear the sound of Savitri. Maybe. I don't know. And I think both Amita and I were fond of the English language at that age. I mean, whatever fondness at that age means, that's all I can say, nothing else. And that was quite an amazing experience.
And the play was staged in Shimda's room. Shimda came in the middle room and sat beside. So, did he make any comment afterwards?
Sri Aurobindo. Did he say anything about it?
I don't know. If he said something to the mother, we were not told. I think we were much too young. We were much too young to be, in fact, told even.
Were you nervous when you did the recitation in front of Shimanda? Or you were?
Were you nervous? He asked if you were nervous.
No.
Mother had trained you.
We were not nervous. This was an Nizam home, and you were as comfortable with Mother And with Sri Aurobindo, no. I mean, at least no. The question of being nervous did not even arise.
Did you perform it anywhere else afterwards?
Afterwards, yes, when we started in the playground, for a few years, I had quite a few roles, like that. But then the ones who continued much more was Amita for a long time.
She has told us
Yeah,
a
I
good
think she
deal,
would have
yes.
told you.
Yes.
But Amita and I, this was the first thing that happened. And then Humor has done much more. I did for a few years. And then I think my interest moved into another way. Or I won't say my interest. It was Mother who said that you have your studies, fine. But I want you to be your father's assistant. Wherever he travels, whatever he does, be his secretary, I want you to be totally attached to his work along with your study. So, this was a shift which took place at that time.
Can you tell about your experience of Sri Aurobindo when you had his darshan for many years? What was your...
You said you wanted to go be alone, you told your father. Before Sri Aurobindo?
Oh, that.
Yes.
I told you.
And that was before Dilip Kumar Roy, or did you have an opportunity?
No, it was
when
before.
It was
Dilip
before.
Kumar Roy, I just stumbled on it once, But I don't know, I was so fascinated by standing in front of Sri Aurobindo and looking at his eyes and his whole being. I just didn't want to be behind my parents. I wanted to be by myself, if I may put it like that. And there was no nervousness, I was just so happy seeing him,
And then you did pranam to mother?
No, we didn't do pranam, in fact, at that time. They sat on the darshan seat. To mother's right was Nirodha, just outside. And in front was a wooden box, the full length of the archway. And as people would come, they brought a lot of tulsi malas in those days, and malas of a little fragrant leaf which used to be called new birth. I haven't seen it around for many years now.
Yes.
So those malas are put in that wooden box. And there's no pranam because there's no space even. You stood in front, and I'm sure all the senior people did pranam by folding their hands and bowing down and passed on. But children, I guess we didn't do that. We just stood there, and looked from one to the other. But for me, the highlight of my life was standing before Sri Aurobindo.
And about mother?
Mother we used to see every day, 3-4 times. Mother also. I mean, it's not that you only looked at Sri Aurobindo and didn't have mother darshan, but you see, we saw Sri Aurobindo 4 times a year. Mother was 4 times in a day. So
Yes,
that
yes,
was
yes. And how did she guide you in education? I know that's a long subject.
it will take.
It's all right.
It will take you many, 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 many sessions. So I
We've
won't
done,
even dare to
we've done
begin.
13 with Amita.
I'm not surprised.
And so we're free at your service to do as much as you want to tell us.
Narad, you can't. You know you are winding up the series very shortly. I can only say something. 2 things. In the beginning we just did a few of subjects, English, history, whatever, depending on the teacher that we had. About the same time as the Savitri program, one day Mother just says to me, I want you to teach small children. It's good to be with small children, she says. I said, Mother, but I'm studying. She said, doesn't matter, you can do both. She never took no for an answer. I said, Mother, but I don't know how to teach. She said, I'll tell you. That was the end of the story. In those days, if we had one classroom on the first floor. You know where abouts you have the recording room now, around there. And below there was a couple of rooms where you had the little children, 3 to 5, who had rather old teachers. So those kids were absolutely delighted to have a young teacher. You know, they'd bring flowers and all. And so I used to run up for my classes and run down to take those classes. So it was very interesting how it happened. And I said, Mother, what do I do now? Okay, you've asked me to do it, I'm doing it, what should I do? She said, it's interesting what she said. First she said, give the children freedom. So I said, Mother, but aren't they too young to be given freedom? They were not more than 5. She said, a child is never too young to be given freedom if you can create the right atmosphere. I'm still left trying to understand what that means. Then she said, every day you write a notebook of what you've done with them, like they were learning the alphabet, they were learning how to write a few letters. So I would write a little, I send it to her, and she'd write back her comments, which I had with me. Then we had the break from 9:30 to 9:45. So she said, you bring all your class to me. We had blessings at that time in the meditation room. So I was there with my 10, 12 little kids behind me. I would go take each child to her, stand there, and Mother would say, this child is like this is like this, treat this child like this, treat this like that. So that's how it happened. And somehow the work of teaching has gone on for me till today. I mean, as I grew in years, my students grew in years also. They were no longer kindergarten, but then in school and so on. Somehow that's being part of life. But my own studies and all, it's I don't know where to begin.
She must have poured so much into you.
But one thing I could say, all of us who were here, each of the children, she guided each child according to his past evolution and destiny, the work in the present life and the present formation of personality. It was to bring out the fullest of the personality. For each child who were with us, we were a group, we were a family that felt so close together because we met through mother and mother. And we knew that each one was different yet connected. And each personality she molded for the kind of work that that child had to do. You could see that the way she handled each one, shaped it according to the interests, the capacities of the child, or the limitations that had to be overcome, the difficulty that had to be conquered. Each child was molded, and the time, the energy, the attention she gave was amazing. Nothing escaped either her inner vision or her perception. You know, everything, she gave shape to her whole being. I mean, I can only say a few things which are perhaps relevant. First, she said, follow the studies that you want, but your main work, be an assistant to your father, wherever he goes, whomever he meets, what he does. So I was doing both all the time. All the time. In the higher course, I chose my own subjects of interest, philosophy, psychology. But at one time, when I was in the higher course, one morning when I go to her, she says, you know, Golconda is a place of great beauty. You need that. I want you to live there. You know, students didn't live in Golconda like that. And I was living with my parents nearby. She said, no, it doesn't matter. You be with your parents, you're with them in the daytime, but I want you to live in Golconda, to have that experience. Then she said, you move in tomorrow. I'll tell Mona to get a room ready. Tomorrow you move in. This was sometime in the month of May 1956. When did I was? Then, how to speak about that? 1956.
Some people told us they felt something. Others didn't speak about it.
All right. I'll share the way it happened. Somewhere in 55, maybe end 54, early 55, I can't be sure of the exact time. I've already said that this relationship with Shobinda was very strong since I was very young. It grew always. And I literally used to see, waking like that, it was not in sleep or anything, that Shobinda is very busy and is doing something with his hands like that. Huh? With his hands, it's very strange, like that. Huh? And he's very busy. In those days, or all the time, we spoke to Mother just like that, anything that was there. And very often when we had something to say, we did not take too much time. We didn't request for an interview or something. But when Mother came to the playground from the tennis ground, we just stop her, while she was going into her own room. And she would see that here is somebody waiting for me. And if she had the time and felt it was right, she would stop. So all this happened in the playground, somewhere between, near the map of India and the door to Mother's room. So one day I went up and said, Mother, I find Shobinda is very busy. He seems to be doing something. What is he doing? You could share this with her like that. He seems very busy, but what is he doing? She gave me a smile of a kind of sweetness that it is hard to put into words. Extremely sweet. What she said, you will find out. Another 2 months passed after that. Again the feeling that he's very busy. Again the same smile. Mother's smile and look was never the same at any 2 moments. It was always changing. Not from the consciousness of what she was dealing or doing, but it was never the same. She said, you will find out.
Again, she said the same thing.
This happened 3-4 times in the course of the year 1955. You will find out. And I kept quiet. Then came 56, 29th February, Wednesday meditation. For the 1st of March, next morning, when I went up to Mother for blessings, she said to me, were you present at meditation last night? I said, yes. In the playground? I said, yes, Mother. She said, did you feel anything? I said, I'm sorry, Mother, I just had a very heavy head. She said, what Shobinda was busy with has happened. Then right through March, April, a lot of things happened. A lot of unfolding things which one wrote to Mother and she wrote back. But that's another story. These are in the form of letters. But in May, she put me in Gulgam.
Do you recall, you must recall something of when he left, when Sri Aurobindo left his body,
Yes.
1950.
You know, we were allowed to go upstairs once a day. The older disciples had their place to sit, they could spend more time. There was something solid, massive, shining gold. It was just that. It was amazing. Day after day, it was something. It was solid and a kind of living burnished gold.
Many people have seen the golden light. Do you have any kind of such?
I can't use the word light, quite frankly. For me, it was just the presence of the body on the bed and what that felt like. But that was solid gold. But before that, if I may say, you know, before each of the darshans, the presence of Sri Aurobindo would be felt in a vast circle outside the main ashram compound. You know, rows of streets around the ashram. It was so solid, you know, like you could touch it, move out in it. That was in the streets. It would flow out. A few days before each darshan, that was very solid. And our house was just one street away from the main ashram there, and you know, 2-3 streets around the ashram. It was like, it was just like that. But the living action and presence of Sri Aurobindo all the time, that is something which is a reality.
How long you stayed in the Volpond?
Till I went to study in Paris, 6 years I was there, right through. Well, that's another chapter, because somewhere I had something inside me which said that I would like to read Sri Aurobindo again in the context of European thought and culture. I always felt that one's education needed these both sides, and somehow to read Sri Aurobindo in that setting. You know, after all, he lived there from the age of 7 to 21. I was feeling there was something to learn that I couldn't put into so many words. That's how it started. It was not for anything else. So when I mentioned this to Mother, she said yes. She liked the idea. Because, you know, from our center, I was the first student to go out for studies. So Mother asked me, where do you want to go? And my French was pretty limited at that time, and I knew nothing of the sort. But I don't know where these are. These are some old sanskars that come with their own meaning. And what came was that, Mother, I want to go to Sorbonne. I only knew the name. Mother was very happy because she told everyone upstairs, Aster has decided to go to Paris. She put it like that, rather than go somewhere else. And in those days, students from here were not admitted anywhere else, but everything went very easily for me somehow. And Mother said, you'll find the people who will help you in all this. And those years were very fruitful. And I was home every year, and Mother would guide how to synthesize, how to see what emerges from India and what emerges from Europe and how they make a synthesis. She guided that for 6 years. I was there for 6 years, one bit by bit by bit. And when I came back, she said, it's very beautiful, but now something else. But before that, she'd already put me onto the Auroville track.
What year did you come back?
I came back early 70, but in 69, I was here on my usual holidays from Paris. And Mother said, no, you will, I said, Mother, I'll finish my work soon. What is? Obviously, I was coming back. I was not staying there. Then what I have to do? She said, you will know when you finish your work. Mother always, I think for most of us, she told us what we had to do, what was our line of growth, what were our difficulties, what we had to overcome, what were our shortcomings. She always told us, showed us our path and made us walk on that path. For each child, I'm sure she did. And she said, you will know when you are there in France. So when I was finishing my work, I had a letter from Monsieur André, Mother's son, who used to handle the correspondence. Then he wrote to me that in the August of 1970, the United Nations in New York was having a World Youth Assembly where they decided to invite about 1,000 young university people from all over the world to ask them what kind of future do they see for man. It's a very interesting idea. I mean, it was not the old diplomatic stuff, but to ask young people, because that's how the world will be shaped. So Monsieur André wrote to me that Mother wants Auroville to be represented at that assembly in New York. And she's thought of you for doing that.
Oh, wonderful.
I knew nothing of Auroville. I was not here in 68. I was in Paris. I had no idea what Auroville was about. But this was obviously a work Mother had given me, and you had the idea that, okay, there should have been those ideas that you put out on in different ways. So I was there for 3 weeks. It lasted 3 weeks, that whole assembly. And this was August of 1970. And then I came back November 70. And then Mother said that I wanted to work there. That's how Auroville. Otherwise, I would have been here all the time. And it was not an easy transition for me to make, I must say that. I mean, this is my home, my roots are here. But I could see something new was happening there, but that's how it's all started.
And with me also.
So you took up teaching in a higher course.
I'm teaching, yeah.
So Mother asked you to teach?
That as soon as I came back from Paris, I was teaching there. But then I was teaching full day. Then when the work in Auroville started, it was something so new for me. It was difficult to handle both. So for some time I was not. But now for many years again I'm giving some time. So I divide my time. Not as much because I seem to have quite some work in Auroville also. So for me, it's their work of evolution which goes into wider and wider spheres. There's no difference.
Yes.
The dynamics, yes, is not the same, because the dynamics of experience, obviously when you have it in a setting of the world stage, has to be different up to a point. But maybe my years in Paris gave me that training, or, something of that background.
Did you work in any department or some departments?
Always the school.
Sports, you did sports?
I did.
You were good at.
Flower room was my first work. First work
Yes.
that mother gave me. And then she gave me a name also, Aster is a name she gave me.
Oh,
And I
what was
remember
the-
you told me one time that she told you how to pronounce it also. I remember that story.
The name my father had given me was Mira.
Mm.
And when I was about 11, one day, I never asked her for a name. She said, I have a name for you. So she said, she gave me a flower. She told me what it meant. It meant transparency. Then she said, but I'm giving it to you as a French name, which is Aster. And she made me pronounce it after her because I didn't know the pronunciation. She said, and let nobody pronounce it in the English way, which is different. But it is the French name I'm giving you. Then she gave me a small bottle of perfume. And the name of that perfume was Transparence. That's how the name started. So to respond to your query, flower service was my first work, and then the school. It's always been the school, either the kindergarten or something else.
What kind of sports you did?
Oh, sports, yeah, of course I joined the sports system, but I'll tell you that I was not very good in sports. What I was really good in was basketball. I loved the game and I was in a good team there. I enjoyed swimming. I did everything, athletics, gymnastics, because the first group of young girls was started with Chitadi as captain, so I was part of that. So I did it all, but I wasn't particularly good at it, except basketball. That was my favorite game.
Did
Like-
you paint? Your hobbies, did you do any paintings, some offering to the mother?
No. In fact, I'm doing some graphic work now, but at that time, I did study with Krishna Lalji. Krishna Lalji, Sanjeevanda, we all had learned, and I was very fond of drawing and painting, but it didn't work itself out in something definite. No.
Any singing, dancing you did?
A bit of dancing I did, not much. Music, I loved listening to music, but I found I had no talent for it, none whatsoever.
Aster, I'd like to ask you about what you see in Auroville today, 45 years later.
This is hard to answer in a straight way. I can only say this much. The Matri Mandir being completed, that is, a major miracle. In spite of the dedication, devotion, work of so many people, when you see it today, you still think that its existence has happened because of sheer grace, not because of what has gone into it. No, it has come in an unbelievable manner. And the dynamism of Auroville, which has lasted for 45 years, will fulfill itself, no question about that. There are moments when the energy is at a high peak. There are moments when you are assimilating the work already done and getting ready for the next leap. So I think after the completion of Matri Mandir, it's perhaps waiting for the next leap. Because when you look around the world and the world's events, it's interesting that I thought I had stopped traveling. I felt no need to travel. In the last 10 years, somehow there have been some invitations, and it's Niruddha who told me, no, you must go. Otherwise, I had no urgency or no sense of wanting to travel. And in that, I've seen that the world is changing very fast. Everything that comes out in the form of writing, new subjects, new disciplines, new discoveries, things at the frontier areas of research, and the people you meet, you find that they're all leaving the old behind them and moving in a direction which is only Sri Aurobindo Sandhi Mother's path of evolution. And many of them, most of them, have not read Sri Aurobindo as a mother. But this whole race of humanity has crossed a certain threshold into the new. That's my perception. And the founding of the ashram is the nuclear, the basis without which Auroville could not have taken root. Way about it. It is the ashram growing in its action worldwide that has invited the world to come and take root there. So whereas that force used to work in the world as a whole, here there is a nucleus, a concentrated nucleus of people who are conscious why they have come, they've chosen it. So the action is faster and quicker, more accelerated. But today around the world you see the change. In the last 10 years it's phenomenal what you see happening. Around the world, you take it from China, Russia to America, it's amazing what's happening. And I'm very conscious of that fullness, that something has truly moved beyond the threshold where the mind has worked out its achievements, is faced with its limitations, and in a certain sense, edged forward. More than that, I don't have a sense of.
So do you think this is the effect of 1956, 29th February, the descent of the supramental?
Absolutely. More and more it becomes visible.
But people are not aware of it, but the changes are happening.
Arvind, people are more aware of it than we realize.
I agree.
That is one opportunity which these last years of a bit of travel and meeting visitors who come to Auroville has given me. They are aware of it more than we realize. They may not find precise words sometimes, but the way they think, the way they act, the way they are trying to live, different. You see the whole world of sciences and arts and humanities, you see that nothing lives in isolation. Everything is interwoven. I mean, you look at any field of human effort at the moment, and the fact that major institutions set up by man, which have achieved a lot, have collapsed. They're not collapsing, they have collapsed in the last few years. That shows that the new is coming out. Because when the new comes out, it needs space in which to manifest. If the old holds it tight, how can it come out? Like, the sprout of a seed that you put in the ground. it's somewhere there's a crack in the earth, in the soil, and then it comes out, and you see the leaves, etc. So the fact that now things have collapsed, they are not just torturing, they are not just uncomfortable. People are not just unhappy or about them or find them inadequate, but they are not there because the new is there. And you meet so many young people, you can see in their eyes that they have a sense of it, even though if they can't put it in the word. Their eyes, their look is not the same. You see a lot of little children, 4, 5 years old even. Then you see 20, 25. Their look is not the same. It's so palpable. It's amazing. Obviously, there are many things mixed up, and the new happens and the old goes. So that period of transition that Sri Aurobindo uses that word so often is not just a few years. It's a process. But you see, the new is so visible. It's unbelievable.
I saw them cross the twilight of an age.
It's unbelievable. It would be difficult not to see it.
Yes.
So we are all preparing for the descent of the new race, Superman race.
Arvind, it is not the descent of a new race. It's something that's coming up. You know, what had to descend has descended. It's working its way out to manifest.
Yes.
It is a manifestation.
She said
And
what
you
was
would be
promised
surprised how
yes.
much Sri Aurobindo is being read around the world at the moment. You would be surprised.
It's a lot of opening now to Mother Ashram.
It's more than opening, Arvind. I mean, I don't know if I can communicate that, but it is. It's taking shape. It's manifesting. Opening is when you are seeking something, you're looking for something. Manifesting is when it's actually there. Well, there's a difference.
It's happening.
It's happening. You only have to be, how shall I say, aware to decipher the signs of it, that's all.
Aster, we thank you very, very much for joining us. I hope we can have some more when I return, some more meetings with you. We often ask about the elder sadhaks and recollections about them. I have a list of things, but this was a marvelous, uplifting first interview, and please do come again and join us.
To wind up, I'll just ask that, as we used to put Narada, to spiritual seekers who are coming and just pouring in Auroville, Ashram to seek spiritual life. So what do you advise them? How they should look forward to their life?
The young people who are seeking today.
You'll be surprised at my response. I think the young know what they're looking for. They have a sense of it. There's nothing to say. One can share like now, that's different. But they seem to know somewhere deep within what they're looking for. And something within them is not just guiding them, it's molding them. It is giving them a form and shape. That's all. I mean, the force at work in the world on earth is so powerful. I don't think anything is needed. You were conscious of great presences, but they were not awesome. They were not overwhelming. At least, and my brother too, we were very happy. We were walking around in and out, and they were giving us love. We were in and out. And the ashram was, that's a place where I'd really like to live in one corner. of the ashram. Every room had a great presence, and each presence was different. You could feel the difference. Puranaji was one, Nalnida, Amritaji, Ravindraji, there were more than a dozen.
Yes.
That was amazing. It was an amazing time for us, I tell you. Very powerful, but it was not heavy on a child. That's what I mean to say. I don't think any of us found it heavy. Not just me, but all of us who were there. And as we came, we had very close contacts, and yet each one was very different. And we came from all different parts of the country. And some of us were all born in the same year. It's very strange. Like, as Mother used to say, it's a family of souls that keeps coming back. And our contacts have remained the same all our lives. And each one she molded for a different work. And nobody, now what was beautiful, we never felt, oh, I wish I was doing that work. Each one felt he was in his own place. We had no problem with anyone. We never had, oh, I wish I was doing that work. I tell you, and that exists till today. Of that old crowd.
Yeah.
You know, we are each doing the work that
Yes.
we are given. That's
And you can see it. You go to embroidery, and they
I
just.
don't know. You have Jumo, you have Amita, you have
Yes.
Manoj, you have me, you have others. We're all doing what we have to do. And that each one is right for the work he's doing. And Mother's prepared each one. She would guide the person, tell him. Me, for instance, always at different moment, she would tell me what was the future lab. She'd tell me what I had to do, how to do it. The last interview she gave me was in, it was 71 March, right, this month. She was waiting for me because she left in 73. She told me earlier, you finish your work in Paris and come quickly. I was wondering why is Mother saying that. And then in March 71, her voice wouldn't come out easily. She had to make a lot of effort to bring out her voice. But she gave me a long interview which I've noted down, in which she wrote everything that I had to do in this life. And I said to Mother, Mother, your voice is not coming up, please don't speak. I can't bear to hear you. She said, no, I have to say this. I mean, imagine the way she has worked on every human being that came in contact with her. It's not only one person, she did it with everybody. You can't imagine. She told me everything that I had to do in this life, the work, in Auroville, whatever, step by step by step, everything. I came down and noted it, but to each one she prepared for what she had to do. And those who have come later, who didn't have Mother's physical contact like that, I've seen quite a few of them. They have the same inner guidance even now. That is the beauty. And that is where it shows that is the great force of evolution. I see so many youngsters, they have the same guidance is given to them from within, without the physical contact that we could have. We could speak to her, write to her, this is right, But they have, it's not that they don't have, it's not so. That is the beauty of it. I'm going to tell you one little incident. You talked about the warriors. There was a time when Mother's last blessing was at night, after dinner. So we used to have dinner at home. Then we used to take a mat and a pillow, and we were children, so we used to go to the ashram cottage and go to sleep. And all the older people were there. And Mother used to, when you climb up the steps, you have the little foyer,
Yes.
where you had a photograph. She used to be sitting on a chair over there. And she would call everyone when she was free. Sometimes it was 11 o'clock at night, late at night. Those were the years, must have been 43, 44. She used to go into deep trance. Later we learned that's when she used to go to the war front. When we were children, what did we know? We only knew mother used to go into a trance. So we used to bring a pillow and a mat and we used to go to sleep outside Bola's room over there. One day, my brother was, I think, about 6 years old, Roni's father. He went to mother, she was sitting in a chair there, and mother went into a trance. It happens. She used to be holding our hands, she's called somewhere, and she's gone off, and we would sit there. So we'll wait till she came back. But she didn't give up the blessings. See how she did everything. Now my brother, 6 years old, his mother went into a trance. He put his head on his lap and went to sleep. It was 10:30, 11 at night. Must have been, and my mother was standing just behind him. Must have been half an hour. Later we were told mother used to go to the war front. So, but imagine that consciousness and the sweetness of the being. She came to after the trance and she saw this little boy fast asleep on her lap. So she woke him up and she said, "Your mother's waiting for you now, you go home." And then my mother did a pranam, took him on again. Later, that time we had no idea what it meant. We know mother goes into a trance. We knew nothing. Later we learned that she used to go. She used to go to the war front. It was in those years, 43, 44.
Yeah. The most critical time. Yes.
But she came back from there. She was all there. She said, "Oh, wake up. And your mother is waiting here. You go home and sleep."
Others have told us that they were in the seventh heaven if they were holding mother's hand and she went into trance, because they could hold it for so long. They could just hold her hand and hold it and hold it.
Her touch was amazing.
As they're not physically there, Mother and Shiva, but their subtle body is working all over the world.
Not only the subtle body, that is why you're right in saying that first their consciousness. Subtle body, you see the work that is being done on the body these days in the world through sports, through nutrition. Like everyone is turning into organic food and the clothes they wear, the organic clothes, that is the physical work is there. I mean the absolute spurt in sports and physical education.
Oh, yes.
This is recent, Arvind.
Yes.
I mean even in the Western countries it was not there.
There is still a resistance.
Resistance that has to be.
Yes.
Because the change, the new thing is so tremendous that all the old resistance has to come up. But in fact I feel because the new power is strong enough to deal with the old, that is why the old is coming up. Before it was always there, but it was hidden.
Yes.
Because the new power was not able to work on it. Now it can work on it, therefore it's visible and we can see it.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arvind.